so much I want to ask you, but I don't know where to begin.
All in good time. I'll tell you everything I can. You must...
Pull to open.
Pull to open!
Yes, and what do you do?
This one's something new.
Creatures hostile to everything, including themselves. Nothing achieved, nothing even planned.
Even so, it gives them quite an advantage.
They haven't mastered it, not completely.
Any idea how they do it?
As far as we can tell, to create the energy required, they have to generate fantastic drums!
Liquid ice, 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 liquid ice.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Pull to Open, the only ongoing quest that anyone has ever been stupid enough to start on a podcast to go completely through the show we call Doctor Who in entirely random order, but sometimes order doesn't seem quite so random. My name is Chris Taylor.
And my name is in totality Pete Paschal. And actually, it's not really. I didn't even have my middle name in there, and even my complete first name. But you guys can research that stuff when we're not busy infiltrating some base or city in a jungle that is totally alien. Because my goodness, it's a jungle out there. Chris and I are both a couple of writers, journalists, of course, who have taken upon ourselves to volunteer for this quest. And unlike some people in certain adventures, there is no rescue mission. Should we fail? Should we crash land in a jungle somewhere and half of our party is, well, shall we say, exterminated?
I was going to say that you're giving away the plot of this week's story, but really you're giving away the plot of about 64 different Doctor Who stories there. So it really doesn't necessarily narrow it down to talk about jungles and suicide missions and so forth.
We got to get Alex Kingston to do a little spoilers at the beginning of every episode. That would be fun.
Spoiler, sweetie. Well, but it's no spoiler to say that we've been on this random quest for some time, and one of the doctors that our randomizer likes to take us to a lot is Mr. John Pertwee, the third Doctor.
Yes, sir.
And to give you a little recap, a longer term recap than the one we usually do, 33 months ago on this cursed adventure, we went to Wales and we lost Jo Grant. We lost her to the Nut Hutch and to her beau, who would eventually take her to Brazil in the Green Death.
Lots of green. I'm just realizing there's lots of green in this season, but go on.
Lots of green in the season. Yes, the Green Death of the closer of season 10 of the original show, the anniversary season. 26 months ago, we also went to season 10 for Carnival of Monsters, that Viscount banger of a story. In which the Doctor actually gets to go somewhere in the TARDIS for the first time without the Time Lords, operating it by remote control, and aims for Metropolis and ends up on a ship that isn't really there. It's inside a miniscope.
Boat. More of a ship could mean a lot of things in Doctor Who.
A boat, indeed. And 15 months ago, the Doctor and
I like how precise these are.
We're on a ship, a spaceship, if you will, that was carrying flour, as I remember.
That's right.
Hey, look at that memory.
No replicators in the Doctor Who universe.
For Frontier in Space. And of course, Frontier in Space has a cliffhanger ending with the Doctor shot by the Master as he's fleeing Ogrons. And we had to wait some time for the resolution to that. But 10 months ago...
10 months ago? Wow.
10 months ago.
Well, we're stretching things out a bit now, so okay.
For the 40th anniversary of the Three Doctors, 50th anniversary of the Three Doctors, the randomizer took us to the Three Doctors, the very first story in season 10. And so that left us with one season 10 story left to go, and the randomizer made us wait. And it took us many, many different places. It took us to a lot of terror. It took us to the terror of the Zygons, then it took us to the terror of the Vervoids 3 stories ago. And then it said, no, you must wait. You must wait. 2 stories ago, it reminded us that we are like Amy Pond was the girl who waited. We are waiting. Yes, it took us there. And then it took us back to its comfort food of Pertwee for Pertwee's very last story, a six-parter known as Planet of the Spiders.
Yeah, some creepy crawlies in that one.
And then where did it take us? Where did the randomizer, whose favorite doctor now appears to be Pertwee, not Capaldi,
That's right.
and has been stuck on a Pertwee planet, where did it take us? It took us finally to Classic Show Season 10, Serial Number 4, the one immediately after Frontier in Space. It's Planet of the Daleks. And yes, we have our very first season bingo. We have Season 10 bingo. Pete, release the confetti and the balloons.
I'm trying to activate the thumbs up thing. I think it only works on your side. Is it working?
No thumbs up. Sorry for the.
We might have to add those in virtually in post.
Yes. Yeah, we'll add it in, but we'll add the noises of the celebrations in the streets below you as we realize that there will be no more Season 10 on Pull to Open, at least no more Season 10 of the Classic Show, Season 10 of the new show. However, with the randomizer's favorite new Who, Dr. Capaldi, we've still got to complete. But
you know what's funny here? Look at this. I was actually, as you were doing that, I was looking at the time between all of these Season 10 adventures we've done. And between the first two, looks like 9.
Yes.
No, it's 8. Is it 8 or 9? I'm going to say 9. And because my thing doesn't work otherwise. Then it's 11 months between. Yeah. Then it's 10 months between. And then it's another 10 months to this one. So it's an average of 10 months between every Season 10 adventure. Not to be conspiracy minded or anything, but that randomizer, that is nothing but random, or not at all random.
Do you know what else isn't random? Is the viewing figures for Planet of the Daleks hovered around 10 million.
Oh yeah, when you could actually get 10 million people to watch something.
Right. But yeah, it's tens everywhere. It's tens all over the place. And perspicacious Pull to Open listeners will have also noticed that we've gone from planet to planet. From Planet of the Spiders to Planet Asterisk of the Daleks. I decided I'm going to call it Planet Asterisk of the Daleks, since the planet in question is not actually Skaro.
Right. They can have more than one planet. It's okay.
Yeah, but it's
the Cybermen
really,
do.
Like, the Doctor Who, the people on the Doctor Who production team are just on the side of the Daleks saying, oh yes, since there's a massive Dalek base here, it's a Planet of the Daleks. I don't think so. It should be Planet of the Spiridons.
It's a mislead, Chris.
It's a mislead.
They're so great at the misleads in this era of Doctor Who, which we'll get into later.
Are they?
But I don't want to
misleading themselves.
Well, I don't want to mislead anyone else because what we're doing is leading. Oh, you got something to say before I mislead us into something?
Exactly. Planet to planet, Planet of Spiders, Planet of the Daleks. I just wanted to say we are close. We are very close now to a Planet of Bingo.
Planet of Bingo.
Yes. All we need is Ood and Death.
Planet of Death? There's no Planet of Death. What are you talking about?
Is it what's it called? The Planet of the Dead. Sorry.
But that's you just spun up the Doctor Who title generator there for a second.
The curse of the fatal Planet of Death. No.
Well, that's cool, but that we're still a ways away from, I think, like just Planet Bingo, right? Or is there more? No. Well, we did the Mysterious Planet, so we did that one.
The Mysterious Planet. We literally did the Impossible Planet. Like, we are literally just 2 away from all planets in the title bingo.
Wow. Yeah, we've done Planet of Giants. No, we didn't do the Web Planet.
We didn't do the Web Planet. You're right. We're 3 away. We're 3 away from Planet Bingo.
True.
Oh,
cool.
Boy. And
wow, I'm excited.
33 months until we get there.
All right. Well, it's not another 33 months until we get to what everyone's been waiting for. It's, of course, the time in the show where I get to clock my ear and say, is that the Whomoji Challenge? Yes, it is. The Whomoji Challenge. And even though Chris won the Whomoji Challenge recently by getting it without even going 2 emojis in, somehow we've reverted to the norm. We've hit a reset button. You're still the victim here. You still get to be tortured every time we do this, but I describe emojis to you, which represent the title of a Doctor Who story, and you must guess that story.
Right, I'm currently closing all tabs and windows that have titles of Doctor Who stories in them.
You must have been looking at something there.
Yeah, I
knew that wasn't from memory.
I was just looking at that codex, scrolling through the codex there. So I'm hoping a lot of these titles have filtered in by osmosis, just by looking at the thing. But
okay, there's something unusual about this title, but I'm hesitant to say what it is. About this Whomoji, because if I do, it'll narrow the field considerably. So I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I will tell you it is unusual. All right.
I do well with unusual Whomoji. And
it's also unusually long. So in addition to the other unusual thing. But that's all the hints you get before we get going. It is 8 emojis. Are you ready, sir?
Let's bring it.
All right. First emoji, a satellite.
Okay.
Second emoji, a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Third emoji, a woman. And she's kind of blonde. That might matter.
Okay.
The fourth emoji is a wolf. The fifth emoji is a plunger.
Okay.
The sixth emoji is death. There's the seventh one is hand waving.
Yes.
And the eighth emoji is another doctor. So here we go. Pasting that in the chat.
I am
you go, girl.
Very, very confident about this one. I'm feeling confident about anything that involves a blonde woman next to a wolf. I'm guessing that wolf is bad. It's bad, baby. And the plunger, I mean, there's really only one thing that this could be, and that's parting of the ways.
It is both. Yes, that's what's unusual about it. The person combined them. It's Bad Wolf and the Parting of the Ways together. And that's kind of cool because it's one story. I probably gave a little bit too much when I mentioned that she was blonde. I should have probably left that out. But
I was, when I heard satellite, to be honest with you, I was thinking of the satellites in the Master trilogy in the Sound of Drums.
Oh, okay.
The what are they called? Not the Starlink satellites. That's our real world.
Archangel Network.
Yeah, we go. The Archangel Network.
No, you turn to me for the encyclopedic knowledge of what's going on in any particular episode. But yes, the wolf's kind of a giveaway.
The wolf is a giveaway. The satellite, I guess, that's the station that they're on with the game shows, the Big Brother.
Game station.
Game station, yes, that's it. Thank
AKA
you.
Satellite 5, I think.
This is why the Whomoji Challenge is so much fun, because you know the names for things. And I'm like, you know that episode with that woman and the satellite network and what was it called? And you can just spit it out immediately. That's fantastic.
It's my thing.
Great team.
It's my thing.
Especially when it comes to the Whomoji Challenge. Well, thank you.
Great job.
Thank you to David Emmerich, yes, for that one.
Thanks, David. Rock on. We got a few more of yours to get through, and I'll tell you, Chris, that is not even the longest one.
Oh, God. Wow.
We're going to get some long emoji challenges in the future.
Wow.
But you can look forward to that, listener, and you can actually do some shorter ones if you choose, because all of these emojis are reader submitted. You can go to your Apple Podcast app and leave a review and leave a Whomoji right there in the title of your review or in the body review. It doesn't really matter which, but just go ahead. That's the best place to leave emojis. We see all the reviews. So if you have some thoughts on how to portray a Doctor Who story title in the form of emoji, that's where to go.
Here's a question. Do we have any Doctor Who title represented by a single emoji yet?
No, although I think we might have asked someone to submit smile as a single emoji, but it's a little too easy.
It's a little too easy, but no one's done it yet, so maybe it's too easy for the average Doctor Who fan. But you dear listener, you can phone it in and still ensure your place in the immortality that is the Pull to Open Codex. By doing that. And you can also do something very, very easy if you're on Spotify. Pull from the bottom of the screen. That's right, it's Poll to Open, where the ratings that you give to the particular story that we're talking about. In this case, Planet of the Daleks. But they're on every single Spotify episode of ours. Going back a set, just don't go back too far. And they stay open, so you can change the results. And one story that you can change the results of is Terror of the Vervoids. That's right, Terror of the Vervoids. Go back and listen to the podcast where we talk about the implications of Sutek being wrapped around the TARDIS and the fact that Mel just appears out of nowhere. We headcanon the crap out of that. But I'm
surprised there isn't more attention on Terror of the Vervoids now that Mel is back. You know what I mean? It's her first adventure. She's introduced in kind of a timey-wimey way. Yet I don't really hear about it a lot in Doctor Who magazine or whatever, or online.
It's hidden in plain sight right there in the middle of Trial of a Time Lord. And, that was a very difficult time for the show.
True.
I'm sure a lot of people don't want to revisit it. But if you want to revisit your rating for Terror of the Vervoids, go to the poll. The poll so far... Gotta say, once again, the audience is leaning towards my side of things. I rated it a Professor Hater, which means that it was a not so good episode, but they learned a lot.
Someone learned something.
Someone learned something. A lot of people learned not to keep watching Trial of a Time Lord, but let's not talk about that now. Anyway, 66% of the people said that it was a Professor Hater.
Yeah, basically roughly 2/3, yeah.
Yeah, and no one, you gave it a Dalek Hater hybrid, which
that's right.
means that you thought it was half good.
Yeah.
People did not see the half good. Instead of a Dalek, they saw an Ogron. It must be the Master's evil plan to make them see whatever they fear.
Yeah, according to the audience, it's a Hater Ogron hybrid.
Yep.
This is not good. So maybe that explains why it's not being revisited all that much in fan circles. But I can see it. There's definitely problems with Terror of the Vervoids. I took to the interesting stuff about plants and sentient plants and that Doctor Who monster actually being kind of cool. Plus, I remember the trial stuff was actually much better than I remember this time around. So, but
they don't want to revisit plant genocide. It's a very uncomfortable thing to admit that the Doctor was involved in, whether or not the Matrix was modified. But anyway, we're getting very nerdy with that. And this is not a podcast about Terror of the Vervoids. This is a podcast about Planet of Daleks. So, Pete, I'm going to give you 1 minute to say all the things that you want to say before it's time for your challenge.
Oh my God. Well, I'm going to have to not squander this minute and make sure I say that, you can support the show by following us on YouTube. Liking and subscribing is a good way to do that. But of course, if you really like the show, we'd welcome you as a true companion of Pull to Open. All you have to do is commit to a certain monthly amount per month. And if you really, really love the show, you might even want to contribute at the Viscount level, which means you get to join us for one of our commentaries. If you just want to make a one-time donation, that's of course called a super thanks. That's easily done on any video. You'll find it at the bottom of the video. And if for whatever reason you're not on YouTube, Patreon is a good place to go. Patreon.com/pull-to-open. And you can even support us directly through Spotify. So try any of those channels if you want to hear more Pull to Open into the infinite future.
And time. No, sorry, I wasn't actually timing that one.
I think it was like 40 seconds.
But yes, if you are in fact a masochist and you want to do the thing we call the TLDW, Too Long Didn't Watch, Too Long Doctor Who, summary, then definitely you can become a companion and join us and perhaps save one of us from the torture that is trying to describe an entire Doctor Who story in 30 seconds per classic episode, which is what we do.
Someone's got to.
Since, unfortunately, Planet of the Daleks is a six-parter, we'll get into whether it merits being a six-parter later on. We'll certainly get into how long the amount of dialogue is versus the actual time that it all takes up. Anyway, we give 30 seconds per new old Who episode, and that means, Pete, since it's your turn this week, you have a whole 3 minutes to bathe in the ice pools of Spiridon.
To wander through the jungle.
That's right.
The ice jungle, the cold jungle. I forget what it's even called.
Yes, as
doesn't bode well for my TLDW if I'm forgetting.
Plants squirt on you left and right. You have to summarize Planet of the Daleks in 3 minutes. Are you ready? How are you feeling?
Well, let me just turn on one of my spare oxygen containers here to make sure don't suffocate.
You got some ice crystals right there. You got some fungus right there. Just God, I'm just helping you out here.
Yeah, it might be well below zero where I'm at. No, I think I'm good. I think I can handle something here. Something will come together as I wander around looking for facts that happened in the episode.
How very, very doctorish of you. You don't have the faintest idea how you're going to solve this TLDW. But you have confidence that you will. Well, let's see if that confidence is merited. As we plunge headfirst into the ice pool of the official pull to open summary of Planet of Spiders in 3 minutes.
Spiders.
Well, do Planet of Spiders if you want. I mean, I did it. I made a complete hash of it.
How about, can I do Planet of the Spider Daleks?
Yes. Planet of the Spiridon Daleks is really what we should call this one. Planet of Daleks asterisk, not actual Planet of Daleks. In 3 minutes, the original, official, pulled open summary of Planet of the Daleks in 3 minutes or less. And go.
Okay, the Doctor and Joe are fleeing from the Ogron planet where the Doctor was mortally wounded, well, hurt anyway, and they materialize on some other planet, but thanks to the Time Lords directing it. The Doctor's hurt. The Joe puts him down on a bed. She wanders out of the TARDIS to find some help, but it's a jungle and it's crazy, and she finds this downed ship, sort of a shuttle, but there's a dead guy on it, and then there's this invisible person who's stalking her. It's all really weird, but the people from the shuttle who are Thals, they're actually from Skaro. They find Joe, and she tells them about the Doctor who's hurt on the ship, but the TARDIS is all like gunked. And so it's all like the Doctor can't even get out. The oxygen runs out, but the Thals get him out of there. And then the invisible guy comes and takes Joe and captures her, but she's been gunked too. And she's starting to get this infection, but that guy cures her. The Doctor gets a little bit on him. They cure him. Doesn't really matter. But so it gets across that this is a very hostile jungle. There's invisible guys. And then they find there's Daleks here too. Of course, there's Daleks. There's only about a dozen of them, though. And they're trying to find the secret invisibility. The Thals are there to destroy the Daleks on whatever mission they happen to be on. But it's quickly revealed that, through the transmissions that this other Thal ship intercepted is actually 10,000 Daleks. It's the largest Dalek army ever assembled. And they realize that they have to destroy this army because the Daleks are going to invade the galaxy anyway, even though their plan in the previous story with have the Earth and the Draconians fight failed. So the Daleks, so the Thals and the Doctor and Joe eventually end up getting together. Even though the Doctor's captured in he's taken to the Dalek base and he escapes or tries to escape with the Thals. The Thals come and get him through the ice tunnels. And they escape from the city, but then they have to come back in and destroy the Daleks. But the Daleks decide they want to just simplify things and kill everyone on the planet with this virus. But then Joe's friend, the invisible guy, goes in and sacrifices himself to ensure that they can't do that. And then the Doctor and everyone use the Daleks' weakness, which is that they get cold and they get disabled. They do that to a couple of Daleks. They infiltrate the place and they get ready to put their bombs right where the Dalek army is. And what they do is they set off that bomb, and then the whole thing, the ice volcano floods and makes sure this 10,000 strong Dalek army is completely frozen for centuries. Even though there's a Supreme Dalek that's coming, it looks really cool. And so the Thals capture the Dalek ship and take off. And the Doctor tells them something about not glorifying war. The other Daleks pursue the Doctor and Joe back to the TARDIS, and then they flee just in time. But the Daleks promise that they're only delayed, not defeated. And then the Doctor and Joe wants to go home, and the Doctor says, "Home it is, Miss Grant." At the end, and then they go back to Earth.
Minutes exactly. You hit it right on the nose. The crowd goes wild. That was a perfect TLDW, so congratulations. You even got the last line in there. I've got to say, I was a little bit worried because you kept saying things like the Supreme Dalek looks really cool. which is true. Which is
Fact check true.
Fact check true. Behind the scenes, it was actually a Dalek from the Doctor Who and the Daleks movies. Peter Cushing. That's why it had more of a budget.
You just call me Peter Cushing?
Yes.
I'm flattered.
That's right. You sit on a Peter Cushing cushion of gold after that TLDW. So, wow, that was a weird link. But yes, I was also a little concerned because you tried to point out, you took at least 5 to 10 seconds of this TLDW to point out that the Dalek plot makes no sense if we're coming straight from Frontier in space.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which part? And a lot of it didn't make sense.
I mean, yeah, a good 30 seconds of that was you recapping the end of Frontier in Space, which actually is recapped at the beginning of this.
Yeah.
It's about the only cliffhanger. It's a bit of a weird one because there's just no time for going back and recapping before cliffhangers in this.
Yeah. I noticed that, especially when coming from Planet of the Spiders, where they seriously, like the last 2 minutes of every episode are recapped at the beginning of each, to the point where you're eye rolling. And here it's like you get one line, maybe like the thing that set up the cliffhanger, and that's it. And then we're right into it. I really appreciated that. So did Grace. I watched this whole thing with Grace, and she was like, "Oh, I love these short recaps."
Nice. I was going to say, by the way, given that the character of Rebecca, who is one of the Thals, was basically Terry Nation's daughter, Rebecca, was
named for her.
Named for her. I think that Grace should be referred to as Grey. Podcast. And
sure.
That's we're at Terry Nation levels of invention here. I
sure have some weird names, but I guess they also had weird names in the first adventure because this is very much, it's obviously it's a sequel to Frontier in Space, but it's really more a sequel to the Daleks, the original story with them.
And I gotta say, the randomizer has taken us here at a time when we now have colorized Hartnell Daleks.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's true. I haven't seen that version though.
I haven't seen that version here, but after this, you've got to say that Terry Nation was colorizing Hartnell Dalek stories before it was cool.
It's true.
It basically is a rewrite. It feels like a lot of people say that about Nation. I hadn't seen this, by the way. I've never seen this before. And I was like a little uncomfortable that people always say about Terry Nation. They just kind of rewrote the same script, all of his Dalek stories. I hadn't really seen it before, but my goodness, you see it in this one, right?
Yeah. Well, in fairness, this is not just the 10th anniversary of Doctor Who, it's 10th anniversary of the Daleks as well, right?
Yes.
This is the same season. So, I mean, it was the second story. So, in other words, I don't think this is just hackery, even though you could make the case as a hack. It's a homage, obviously. And he directly name checks the adventure, certainly in the first episode. When and this is funny because we talked about recaps and the beginning of this recapping Frontier in Space. I feel like the Doctor needs a recap because he got hit on the head so bad he forgot he's chasing the Daleks, it seems like. And even though he meets Thals and he recounts the adventure, the Daleks, at the end of episode 1, there's this weird, let's see what we're up against, like some kind of reveal. It's like the most obvious Dalek reveal. Like the name of the episode is Planet of the Daleks. Like, what are you doing? Like, we know there's Daleks. Like, it's not a shock.
Yeah, so if you're going to spray paint anything into existence at the end of the episode, it's going to be a Dalek. I mean, it's nice that there is a reveal where you spray paint thin air and you get a Dalek. That's cool. But the Doctor's surprise, given that we last saw the Daleks trying to conquer the galaxy by getting rid of the human and the oh god, what are they called? The I'm forgetting all the names. the other empire, Draconian Empire. Thank you very much for not reminding me. I found it there on my own anyway.
You're a veteran of the Whomoji challenge. You can handle that.
Yeah, I can do this. But yeah, he not only does he recap the Daleks in a very neutral way, he name checks his 3 companions in the Daleks, and Susan gets third billing. his own damn granddaughter, who he hasn't talked about for 9 years on the show, who just went off with someone who was fighting the Daleks, by the way, and was lost. And she gets third. Barbara, Ian, and what was that girl's name?
No, he's Ian, Barbara, and Susan. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure Ian's first. And honestly, it's a good, interesting thing to point out, because that's how the shorthand of that trio is often referred to, and it is arguably certainly sort of a pecking order, and Ian being the man,
yes.
And then Barbara, it's like, and then Susan the kid, which is true. I mean, format wise, it that is sort of how the show was even written in terms of those characters, who was given the best lines and had the most impact on each episode, which again, one of the reasons Carol Ann Ford left early. But it is an interesting thing to kind of like, oh yeah, like you could, if you were sort of thinking about who would probably be the first one, it would probably be Susan, right? Who means the most to the Doctor.
You would think.
Yeah.
But of course, we also have to explain why the Doctor, as Kate Lethbridge Stewart asks in Empire of Death, Legend of Ruby Sunday, sorry, why have you never been back to see her? And he's like, oh, I bring death in my wake. But could have tried. Could have sent a note. Could have mentioned her first when recapping the episode.
There's definitely, here's the thing. Pertwee, I like him in this episode, but there's missed opportunities for him to show a little more range.
Yes.
This is one of them. Like, if he had just even a moment, it doesn't have to be anything long, just sort of thinking about Susan. And if it was clearly like thinking about it for a second, that would have been neat. The other one, and this is a little later on, when the Daleks destroy the shuttle, he thinks Joe's in there.
Yes.
He's despondent for like about a minute.
Yes.
And then he's right back in Pertwee mode. And there's no like, I'm wrecked because I just lost Joe. Like, he should be wrecked.
He should be. And what amazingly, what we get right after the scene of the shuttle blowing up where he thinks Joe is dead, is a scene where the Daleks are ordering him into an elevator. And then they sit there in the elevator for a bit, kind of the Doctor and the Dalek kind of just awkwardly in an elevator. When the Doctor thinks that Joe has just died, right? Like, maybe that could be a point of conversation. Or at least the Dalek could bring up... You know what I think that would make that scene better? I was thinking about this, is you need some elevator music. Because it's just silence. It's just like the Dalek is interrupting between walk and halt. And like, the Daleks don't say a lot in this. Generally they are not as sassy as Daleks normally are. But especially in this scene, like, the silence is so uncomfortable that you could sort of almost imagine the Dalek going, "So, good weekend, Doctor? Did you get it up to anything fun, Doctor?"
Yeah, I got to say, like, I was expecting too much of a mid-70s classic Who serial to have sort of this sense of modern irony. So, but I would say they got better at this kind of thing in serious Dalek episodes. I do remember sort of in Resurrection of the Daleks, where they're shoving around Davison and they're just kind of wandering around bodies and stuff. And I think, Peter Davison sort of wisely has sort of scowling on his face. Like, it just doesn't really... Like, the death is sort of more apparent, and the horror of the Daleks is a little more felt. Here, it's just kind of like, all right, let's get to the next scene.
Yep.
And they're just kind of moving along. That said,
there's no emotion anywhere.
One thing I do like about that, though, is that the Daleks don't even know it's the Doctor until the end of the story. And that's something they hardly ever do. Like, they're usually kind of like, I think this is the Doctor, and maybe there's some, like in Day of the Daleks, they do the mind probe on him, and they're a little bit like, okay, we got to get his knowledge or take revenge or whatever. And here they're just plotting. They're just like, we got our own stuff going on. Doctor, whoever you are, I don't care. Like I kind of like that. And especially when he jumps out at the beginning and says, no, don't destroy the shuttle. And they're just like, whatever, zap his legs. Okay, we're going to blow the shuttle now. Like, they're just like these nonchalant beat cops. Just kind of like, we're doing our thing, and I really don't care who you are.
It's kind of unbelievable, given how many we've been to a lot of Dalek stories. We see that they like to, not non-Terry Nation Daleks. They like to talk. Okay, they got a bit of a mouth on them. They want you to explain.
Right.
They want to order you around.
They do some of that. They do some of that.
Here they are acting like their supervisor is about to show up, which in fact it is. Supreme Dalek, which was a thing because Terry Nation decided he didn't like the Emperor Dalek, right? That they used without him in the.
I wonder what he didn't like about it. I read that too, but was it that? My guess is that he didn't like that it was this big thing sitting in a lair somewhere and was just kind of boring as a character. I haven't seen Evil of the Daleks. It's one of the very few Doctor Who serials I haven't seen, obviously because it's missing. But one thing I like about the Dalek Supreme here is that it's very, I would say, Vader-like in how it takes charge. Like, it's first out of the ship. Like, whatever the risk is, like, I'm just going out first. And he busts into the Dalek City or base or whatever and is just like, all right, I'm in charge. You do this, you do that. Oh, well, you're the other guy who was in charge until me? Yeah, you're dead. Because you suck at your job.
That's the other thing that is very Vader-like. It's like it does not give his subordinates second chances. This is not a Michael Scott style of management going on here. This is the uncompromising Darth Vader school. So yes, I do think of that Supreme Dalek now and forever as Dalek Vader. Yeah,
and I like that they show a little variety in Daleks in that supervisor just starts making excuses like, hey, was out of my control, bro. Like, I didn't know, like, there were aliens and no one told me aliens were coming and I wasn't prepped for aliens. And it's just like,
these our slaves are invisible. Like, can you imagine the paperwork that is required to maintain a fleet of invisible Spiridon, and all of those fur coats need to be washed.
We should build a whole dry cleaner.
We should not go too far without talking about those purple coats that the Spiridons wear to make them not invisible, and that the Doctor wears and Taran, the leader of the Thals, wears at one point. And I've got to say, I've definitely seen those coats at Burning Man.
Really?
It's kind of the fake fur, multiple shades of purple thing. It's like, it's so Burning Man, and I guess so 70s.
That's true.
They're really fabulous. I mean, it's kind of dumb that that's how the Doctor sneaks in to the Dalek City at one point.
Yeah, Dalek security in this one is pretty, is not even 1.0. They're not checking anyone. And honestly, they should already be aware there's a Spiridon resistance. Like, there's a few people who don't like the Daleks. And in other words, like, how do you even know who's under these things? They're invisible. Do you have any way of checking who it is?
Yes.
And they're just whatever. They don't think to check the Daleks, I guess, because someone sneaks in a Dalek. That's another thing they do.
That's is inside a Dalek. There were actually supposed to be two Thals inside two Daleks. Was Nation's original plan.
That's a little much. I don't mind the homage. Just like we saw in the what's the second one in Magician's Apprentice? Which is familiar.
Which is familiar. Yeah, it does feel a bit Clara. And in fact, there's a line where the Doctor says to Rebecca, thank goodness you got out of that Dalek in time, which definitely feels like a little foreshadowing of Clara and the Dalek.
Yeah. There's a little too much chumminess there, where it's just like, oh, we're supposed to be running for our lives. It's like, all right, so just stop being a Dalek just in time. Just joking around.
Let's talk about how they got that Dalek casing, right? Because you mentioned the ice pools, which, this is a new Dalek vulnerability for this story, right?
And only this story.
Yes, that they can't handle extreme cold. Which is a bit weird because that's how they're stored. So,
it was the suddenness of it when they get shoved into the ice pools by the plane or whatever. It's because they're suddenly plunged into sub-zero temperatures, and there's a shock to it, I guess. So,
but the Doctor is telling the Thal leader that this is a vulnerability of the Daleks. And the Thal leader is like, we've known about these ice pools since we landed here. And the Doctor's like, but the Daleks are vulnerable to extremely low temperatures. And then Thal's like, oh, I mean, like, come on, dude. You live on a planet with Daleks. Like, how did you not come up with this idea? That beggars belief.
Yeah, no, it's true that the whole Daleks vulnerable to cold thing does not make any sense if you extrapolate or past this story in the least. Daleks, we've seen them again. I know this is a New Who thing, but they are in the vacuum of space quite often, which I hear is pretty cold.
Yep.
So, and it just
it's absolute zero, in fact.
In terms of how Daleks work, I mean, it's explicit. It's a tank, it's a vehicle, it's a travel machine for the mutant inside. Why would anything that happens to the tank part of it, affect the creature? You know, and I don't mind the sci-fi idea that it's a little more than that maybe the armor and the creature are bonded in some ways. But it would be, you would want to do that to the Dalek's advantage, not to its disadvantage. And by having this armor, the whole idea is that it's protected by not just from weapons but from the environment. So it's good they really forgot about this right away. I'm willing to take this story alone. Does it work in the story? Does it, it's creating its own terms? So fair enough. I don't think it necessarily ruins this story. It is something that just is ridiculous if you think about it for 2 seconds in sort of the Doctor Who universe.
These mutant Daleks, they put these, the mutant Carleds inside the travel machine, they get ice cream headaches, it turns out. Sudden cold, they're just like, ow, they got a tentacle to their forehead like that. But one thing that I do like about that scene, since we do like to, we like to praise as well as judge here on Pull to Open, is that you don't see the mutant inside, which was sort of the norm for Doctor Who for a while, right? You just hear the sploosh as they open it up and they basically throw the mutant in the ice pool, which is more cold, literally. And but secondly, remind me, Pete, when did we actually see the Khaled mutant inside the Dalek casing for the first time? Was it the Davison era? Was it before?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends what you count, right? I mean, certainly we saw it in Baker. So in Genesis of the Daleks, there's one on his neck when he comes out of the incubator room. He gets some putty on the ground in Destiny of the Daleks and calls it a Dalek mutant. And you do see, I mean, you don't see the whole creature, but you do see the claw in the original story. So the idea...
do you get an exploded Dalek, right? Where you basically get to see the mutant in...
Yeah, Davison, yes. You see it in Five Doctors. Yeah, you actually see the thing. And then you really see it in Resurrection.
Yeah.
So, but I honestly don't know. You sort of see it in Power of the Daleks. We did that one, but that was an animation, so I don't know quite what they did originally. But they do show the Daleks kind of putting mutants into the casings they're constructing.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool.
What I remember from first watching Doctor Who with my dad, I mean, he would pass down items of Doctor Who lore. And one of the things he said, I remember in early Dalek stories, was, you never see the mutant inside. And I remember feeling disappointed during the Davison era, which time I was a fan and watching weekly. That they kind of broke that rule, right? That they weren't just sort of leaving it to our imagination. That is definitely to Doctor Who's advantage.
Yeah, they definitely need to deliver if they're going to do it. I was very disappointed with the Baker stories, even though you sort of see it attacking him in Genesis.
Yeah,
you don't see much. It looks like just some gunk on his neck.
Right.
So it's not as scary as it could be. I think the Davison stuff did it a lot better. And New Who's done it pretty effectively. I like that they've done it fairly consistently here and there. It's not as much of a horror story as it used to be.
So to switch gears, it's not just the Daleks that are affected by cold in this story, but the Doctor himself at the very beginning, his body gets below zero, apparently.
That's right.
He gets a bunch of snow on his face, and that's not the weirdest thing about the scene. The weirdest thing about the scene is that the TARDIS suddenly acquired a bit of IKEA furniture with a built-in bed.
Yeah, it's almost like
room.
what do you even call it? Is that like a Murphy bed? What, I'm not sure. There's a new term for that.
Yeah, it's like a drawer bed. It slides out.
Yeah, it's basically like one of those medical beds on Star Trek that just pops out, and it's cool. It's like, okay, where did this come from? Okay,
Exactly. Like, you get the sense that the TARDIS in this day and age is not as large as it would later become.
right. Well, yeah, that's because the other thing is the oxygen runs out.
Yes.
Because all this gunk is on the outside of it, and implying there's like only a few rooms, maybe at the most. And
Yeah, the Doctor has these tiny oxygen tanks that are supposed to supply the entire TARDIS.
yeah, and I like that they're empty. That's a very doctory thing. That he's oh god, yeah, that's right. I had some oxygen party and was chilling with just Jamie and Zoe over oxygen and cocktails one night.
That does seem like a second Doctor thing to do.
And never replace them. But yeah, it's got this weird stuff. Again, they're trying to do some peril. One thing that even if you accept that whether it's something that just goes wrong with the TARDIS or whatever, there's some problem with the plants and the oxygen. I kind of wonder, well, why not just dematerialize?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's there and he's running out of air. I mean, the TARDIS still works. Just go somewhere and then rematerialize somewhere else. And again, at this point, I think he's more or less able to steer the TARDIS, because he was able to come. Well, again, this was the Time Lords, but he did. He's got a Metabolus, and actually, that's in the next episode. He can do something here.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: the Time Lords are steering it, and with complete callousness, they just let the Doctor kind of fall into this coma. The Doctor later reveals that he used the telepathic circus to tell the Time Lords to follow the Daleks. Right. But the Time Lords could have ignored that, pulled him out of time, dusted him up, given him some oxygen, and then it sent him back on the mission. They're Time Lords.
Yeah.
They could have paused the adventure for that. So, so that's a little weird. And you've got to say, a lot of the fundamentals of the story are not doing Terry Nation any favors.
What specifically?
Well, I mean, okay, first of all, the Thals.
Yeah.
Might have looked cool in black and white, but here, basically, what we've got is a Doctor Who story with no brunettes.
That's true.
There's no differentiation, really, between the Thals are all blonde.
No brunette representation. Oh, no.
Right? I mean, we talk about Doctor Who, not times when it wasn't diverse enough. Like here, it's not even diverse for bleeding brunettes in it, like with Joe and the Doctor, with Joe and the Third Doctor, like there's no one. So the Thals are very samey in the way that they look and in the way they talk, thanks to Terry Nation. They're all a little bit misogynist, as we find out when Rebecca arrives, and Taron, who's the leader, who's supposed to be likable in a way, kind of really goes overboard and says something like you are the reason, you might be the reason the Daleks win, he says to his significant other. Like, chill out, dude. Like, maybe you could, like, I take your point, like you're worried you're not going to make the right decisions now, but you don't seem like an overly emotional guy, first of all. And secondly, like, how is that helping? and she, in the style of a pre-feminist era woman, which definitely doesn't go down that well in 1973, is like, yes, I see, dear. I see, you're right. I suppose you're right. Like she's trying to placate him. And then that's not enough for the other Thal. Anyway, all the Thals.
Well, also nothing's made of it. Like they say that, and then there's no point where there is some struggle. Like it's almost like they're setting up a Chekhov's gun that never goes off. There's a few of those in this episode. But that one in particular was like, okay, well, when's the moment where she sacrifices herself or makes the decision for him because he can't do it or whatever? Like that just never happens. They're just all interchangeable.
It also seems to be forgotten when Latep, whose name was changed because there's a character called Patel in Frontier in Space, apparently. So they changed Petal, as he was originally, to Latep. And I think at one point the Doctor accidentally says Lapet, which I think is perfect. Anyway, he falls in love with Joe because they hold hands. And at no point is it suggested that Latep now can't carry out his duties. because he's too fond of Joe.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's so like Joe gets a lot of guys falling for her.
Really?
You know, this is like King Peladon. There was probably at least one or two others. And it's this rapid fire romance.
Fabulous costume she's wearing here. That 70s top with the shoulders and the zips. Wow, Joe.
And even her coat earlier is quite nice. So I totally get it. Just fashion sense alone, I could see why he's infatuated with her. But these rapid romances, I mean, you know, I guess it's just a Doctor Who thing. I guess things are pretty intense when you're running from Daleks or whatever, and you love a lifetime's worth in the corridors that you're running through.
And you've been holding hands the whole way.
But he seems to take it really well when she rejects him. He's like, all right, whatever, you know, your loss, Earthling.
Yeah. First of all, pro tip to all Thals looking to date Earthlings: do you want to come back with me to Skaro? Is perhaps not the most romantic line ever uttered. Maybe, you know, would you like to come back to my home planet, meet my parents? Something like ease her into the Skaro thing.
It's a little radiation scarred, I'll admit. But if you take some drugs the entire time you're there, you're going to be fine.
It'll be totally fine. And you won't regret it at all.
Let's talk a little bit about the Thals here. So this is supposed to sort of answer the question, whatever happened to the Thals? Because you never hear about them again after the Daleks, really. I mean, maybe they're mentioned here and there, but this is supposed to be like, okay, the Thals still exist, and they've actually developed their own technology, presumably on Skaro as well. And I kind of wonder, well, what's Skaro like now? Is it like two big continents? And the Thals are on one side, the Daleks on the other, and never the twain shall meet? Like, you'd think you'd want to take care of your home, right? Put your house in order before you start conquering or exploring.
Yeah, you really need a scene back on Skaro where some Thal leader is like, it's quiet.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to presume that the Daleks aren't based on Skaro at this point. I think you just have to. I mean, even though there's not at all made. I mean, I can't remember if the dialogue implies that they are in this, but how would that even work? You know, like you're both occupying the same planet and you're both creating space empires, except the Daleks have they've only just recently developed space travel. Anyway, my point is they're trying to do this answer the question of the Thals when it only creates more questions.
Yes.
And they never come back to it again. Like I believe this is the last appearance of the Thals in the series, because they're not really interesting. There's also like this weird quality where they're all blonde and blue eyed, which is like, okay, do we really want to keep going with this? So I think it would be nice. I think they've done this in big finishes or novels somewhere. I'm not sure, but maybe someone listening could let us know. But I feel like you just want to have some throwaway dialogue. Well, the Thals eventually left Skaro. Like, just make that explicit, and then they settled somewhere else, and they lived happily ever after, right? Like, I mean, that's all we really want from the happened to them in these couple of adventures. And that's I think the lesson learned here is that just never use them again.
Never use them again, and certainly do not play them like the guy who, well, actually, like Prentice Hancock, famously bad actor, Doctor Who is one of the Thals here, and Bernard Horsfall, who I believe it's used. He's Chancellor Goff in Deadly Assassin, and basically brings the same energy to this. Like he's a leader, he has a deep voice, but also then we learn that he was actually just the medic. He was the doctor. And he seems like overly concerned with proving this point. He says at one point that he's qualified in space medicine, which you kind of raise your eyebrows. You're like, oh, really? Is that your degree from the University of Space American Samoa? In
fairness, medicine does change a little bit in zero G, and you know, there's things to be concerned about, and cosmic rays, etc. So there probably is a discipline of space medicine. But I take your point. I do think that works. For some reason, it worked for me. I liked Bernard Horsfall in this because he isn't the stereotypical commander, right? Like, I realize a lot of this is contrived, and I've sort of observed this, that even though the plotting, again, on its own terms, is kind of okay, and the dialogue is kind of okay, and the theme, there's a lot of sort of Pertwee mini speeches in this about bravery, about command, and about glorifying war. They're all pretty good. I think the last one is the best when he talks about
Certainly.
don't glorify war, but they're also a little clunky. They're all a little contrived, and the Taran's character is simply a tool to sort of lead to that because he's not a commander, the Doctor has room to be that. He comes in and is essentially, he's the Doctor and he does his thing. So um, I found that okay, and I wish they'd made more of the romance or whatever. Even if it's only in sort of a 60s, 70s kind of sexist portrayal. It's another missed opportunity. They could have done more with him because he's good. I do like Bernard Horsfall. I could see why they keep bringing him back. He's got a nice voice. He's got a sort of a presence to himself. And here, I think he was deliberately not going all the way with it like he does with Goth.
Mm-hmm. But he is going far enough that it kind of sounds like you're like, oh, you think you're not a natural leader? Then why are you doing the 1,000-yard stare and the voice that automatically commands your troops as you lead them into battle? Maybe change the acting a little. I'm just saying, look, Bernard Horsfall's great. I also want to give a shout out to David Maloney, the director, last seen on Doctor Who doing the War Games.
He does a good job. War Games was great. He did a lot of good choices. I love the bits with the generals and etc. Remember, like all the close-ups on the War Lord or whatever he is, and his Steve Jobs glasses.
Yes,
really smart choices in that one.
By the way, also in that was one of the Time Lords at the end of the War Games. So he's everywhere. But I think people respect this story a lot, perhaps more than they should, because of David Maloney's presence. But he does some great things with what he's got to work with here. The angles are great. Like it's, he's bringing in
what's really great?
Yeah.
What's really great is the jungle. Like they clearly spent a lot of money on that set, and they have all the plants, and there's a nice little variety. There are the gunk plants, and then there's a decent amount of stuff that's convincing cover in various chase scenes. So I got him a lot of points for the jungle. It's clearly that's where all the set money went, because the city, quote unquote, why do they call it a city? Like there's 12 Daleks. It's not a city. It's a base. It's a fortress. I don't know why they're calling it a city. There's some kind of local economy, and they have like festivals with Dalek jazz or something. It's not a city.
They advertise it as the city of the Daleks, but it's actually like one of those roadside attractions.
It's the city of the Daleks. Like this is the planet of the Daleks.
Exactly. Like what is going on here with Spiridon? Like has the Spiridon tourist agency just been taken over by Daleks? Come to Spiridon, planet of the Daleks.
So there's
not actual planet.
I want to just mention I watched this on the Blu-ray, the collection, and there is a version that has enhanced special effects. And the only scene that I would say, first I'll just say they show impressive restraint. The Dalek beams are exactly the same. Virtually every effect is exactly. They don't do any embellishing, as far as I can tell, except maybe with some color in the jungle scenes. The only things that I could see were improved are like the TARDIS spinning. That sort of happens earlier. That looks a little better, a lot better actually. And there is the spaceship landing, which is total CGI in the new version. But the thing that I would say, the scene that improves the most, that really needed better effects, is the Plane of Stones, where all those eyes in the background from animals are so obviously Halloween decorations or whatever. Not even, I mean, they didn't have Halloween decorations in the 70s, I think, but, essentially cutouts of, dark blankets or whatever with eyes and flashlights shown through them and maybe a filter here and there. So in the improved version, again, they show restraint. They don't turn it into some amazing special effects masterpiece, but they at least make the eyes move a little bit. It's still a lot of glowing eyes on a dark background, but they look decent for that idea. So points to the team of like, let's improve a few things that are notorious, but let's not alter the tone of it, which is a different thing than I remember. I still think it was a good call, but they did a whole effects revamp of Day of the Daleks, and we talked about that. We done Day of the Daleks a while back, and that you could argue, make the case that it makes it better in some ways, and I did, but it does change the tone of certain scenes when they improve the effects that much.
Then you're like, you have to downgrade your expectations of effects in other scenes. Yeah. David Maloney's choices of the Daleks are kind of interesting here. On one level, they're terrifying. On one level, this is like a prime example of what we talk about when we talk about the fever dream of Doctor Who. Like every kid watching Doctor Who has sort of had the nightmare of what, like, there's a whole sequence where the Doctor is trying to escape the Daleks and they get out of the elevator on the wrong level and oh no, it's another Dalek. Like the jump scare almost of running away from the Daleks and running into more Daleks. Like that's very sort of kid-like. That's, what you want in a 10th anniversary of the Daleks kind of story. However, there are just some moments where, like, you linger on the Dalek, he lingers on the Daleks too long, and it's kind of comical. And I'm thinking of the scene in the jungle where one of the Daleks has a map.
Yeah.
He has a map of the location of the bombs that the Thals have planted. Right, fair enough. They've somehow gotten it off the body of a dead Thal. Right, fair enough. Okay, they write their maps on pieces of paper. Fair enough. But the Dalek, like the eye stalk, keeps looking at the piece of paper he's got attached to his plunger.
Right.
And it's like, this Dalek is really excited to have reading material. And all of the other Daleks, their eye stalks are kind of drooping. Like they're sad to not have reading material. And
a little bit.
Yeah, fairness for Daleks. Give them all pieces of paper they can stick on their plunger.
That was so funny. Like having him, he just was hanging onto the map. Like, I'm the map guy. I found the map. That's my map. And he's kind of wandered around with it and never lets go of it.
Yeah. So how can you see it all if it's attached to your plunger?
Well, those plungers are pretty magical. They can do a lot of things off camera. Pretty impressive. There's a lot of confusion, I thought, in terms of the editing with the bombs. And there's a bit where Jo's head gets her head hit by a rock and the bombs are still there and one of them's going to go off. And then she runs off. And then for some reason, the Dalek comes back to get blown up, which seemed like a weird thing because, like, didn't they know that the bombs, like that they set the bombs to blow up? Like, what are you doing? That didn't really make any sense. The
bombs, just like the ice volcano, have this little dial that goes into the red when they're ready to explode. Interesting design choice there. Yeah.
Well, those are the Thal ones. Those are the Thal explosives, right?
Yes. So, everyone's using dials on Skaro. But there is, and we should talk about Jo's choice of like where she decides to hide those bombs.
Right.
The Doctor's like, Jo, go get those bombs. Latep, go help her. And she's like, oh, it's okay, I hid them. They're right here, she says, walking 2 paces over and pulling them out of the grass. Like, good hiding there, Jo.
That was like one of those stage play things that they kind of tried to pull off, and it's like, you might want to just switch the camera shot just to get a little more sense that they're somewhere else. So let's talk about the sort of big climactic Dalek army that is supposedly going to destroy. Sorry?
The army of toys. The
army of toys. Okay, first of one thing I didn't mention in the improved effects, obviously they improved this. So again, they don't go crazy and make it insanely CGI, but it is CG in the new version, and the Daleks do look a bit better. But all the perspectives are the same in terms of them in miniature and stuff. It actually looks the best in the new version when the liquid ice, the goop, comes in, and then you see all these kind of like Daleks, how they're supposed to look with their eye stalks sticking out of it. That's pretty neat. But okay, so number one, 10,000 Daleks. Okay, the galaxy's pretty big. Like, is this like one Dalek per planet? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's kind of like, how many planets are we talking about here? Because 10,000, like, I wish they'd done a little more with the scale here. And this is something they certainly learned to do in New Who. Yep. Because, just on the record, without even thinking about implications, the Ninth Doctor talks about the saucers at the end of Party of the Ways, I think it actually says it in Bad Wolf that there's 500,000 Daleks.
Yes, and Day of the Doctor, 1,000,000 billion Daleks.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's another one where that's millions. Yeah, it's the Genesis arc at the end of Doomsday that were in the Time Lord prison. He said, how many Daleks were in there? Millions. Yes. And it's a little bit like, okay,
inflation.
Yeah, exactly.
Dalek
That's true.
hyperinflation. Runaway Dalek inflation. Wow.
So that's a little something. Now, the effects again in the original one not so great. They all kind of get frozen. But my contention with this is that is it really going to take them centuries to dig out the army? You know what I mean? Like the Daleks have pretty good technology, and it's just some ice goop.
Yeah.
Like, couldn't they like in the space of a week, like carve out some more tunnels, suck out all the goop, and like even if it takes them like there's cost overruns and the whatever the Cybermen construction workers underbid the Suntarans, so you kind of go with someone who didn't do a good job, and it takes them a year. I would give them like a year. Give it like that's all it would take. You could dig out the army from the goop. What's the problem?
Well, we are told that although it's a jungle planet, apparently the nights are super, super cold. So maybe what we've got is a Sisyphus-like situation where the Daleks kind of they all melt out during the day, and they start doing that thing when the Doctor's walking among them, where they're sort of like wasps waking up, like they're a bit dozy, like which I think is one of the creepiest scenes in this. The Doctor's like tiptoeing between them. He really should have said Daleks. Why did it have to be Daleks? It's just like trying to but like so they wake up during the day and then the night falls and then they just freeze over again, the Daleks. Spiridon nights. But yeah, the sameness of the Thals, I'm just going to throw in also the sameness of the Spiridons.
Right.
Like Terry Nation, again, not doing himself any favors by trying to tackle invisibility here, which is kind of one of his favorite topics.
Yeah. This kind of begins, it probably isn't the beginning, but it's definitely one of the most notable stories where the Daleks are just doing too much in one episode. Like, okay, you're planning to conquer the universe, you're killing off the Thals, and you want to master invisibility all in the same story. And that's really the big Chekhov's gun that never gets pulled. The trigger never gets pulled because you have this invisible Dalek at the beginning, and there is never one more. And they don't even really use the Spiridons much. They there's a little bit of wrestling with one of the Thals in one of the early episodes, but then that's it. Then they all just have the fur coats, and it's like, well, what are we doing?
But then we have Wester, which
poor Wester.
Justice for Mr. Wester, as the Doctor calls him, after doing this horribly racist thing of basically all Spiridons look the same to him. And Joe is like, no, this is the Spiridon that helped me. Well,
how does Joe even know?
Yeah.
I mean, did she mark his fur coat with something? A little lipstick, I guess,
I love that line, the Spiridon that helped me. I kind of want to hear, nobody does it better. You jump in there. Like, yes, Joe is actually more likely to go away at the end with Mr. Wester, I think, than she is with Latep, because he would certainly keep her warm at night.
Yeah. Well, I like Joe's little arc here. I wish she had more to do because there's a bunch of Thal characters and they end up sort of working with the Doctor more than her. But she has some good moments with what would you say, with Lartep or whatever, or like more Wester. She has more good moments with him. But I like that she gets disease. She spends the first couple of episodes distraught and talking to a cassette tape, which is again comical in hindsight. But Joe, Kitty Manning acts pretty well at her heart out there. She does well. And then by the end, you get the sense she's just kind of exhausted. And of course, this is foreshadowing, like, I just want to go home. And it's more than just, I want to rest. It's that, like, I think this whole thing where I'm fighting for planets I've never heard of and getting proposals from dudes 100 million light years away. Maybe there's more of a life I could build, like in my backyard. Yeah,
obviously I'm rocking these costumes right now. I've got it going on. The men of all species are falling over themselves to get at me. I need to go to Wales. Is what she thinks. I need a Welshman. I need a hot piece of Welsh toddy.
Everyone in Wales listening to Pultober's just like, you betcha. All right, boyo, you know it.
Apparently, the Cockneys in Wales are also listening to Pultober. Well, that's an interesting.
Okay, that's the cue. That's the cue, guys, for us to cut right to the 4 questions to Doomsday. Well, first question: why did the randomizer take us here?
Well, Pertwee to Pertwee, planet to planet. I think not only is the randomizer like Pertwee and it likes stories of planets, it also really wanted to show me when I complained the Planet of Spiders had too much padding in it. It was like, oh, you think that's padding?
We're going to give you a hot air balloon ride.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to pad this out so much. We're going to, and by the way, we haven't talked about that cliffhanger where, as we said, like they cut straight to the next line of dialogue at the beginning of the next episode, where so the cliffhanger is the balloon's not going to rise. The balloon's not going to rise before the Daleks get in. We're not. And then the very beginning of the next week's episode is, oh, the balloon's rising. Like there's no real twist in that. It's just that, oh, well, yep, there it goes.
They get out of range pretty quick.
Yeah,
too.
There's a lot of padding. There's a lot of hot air, you might say.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, there's
padding to padding
connection and the just the fabulous 70s-ness of it.
Mm.
It knows I love purple, and there's a lot of purple in this, not just the Spiridon's outfit, but the Doctor has time to change before he leaves the TARDIS from his green outfit in Frontier in Space to a fabulous purple one. It's like he knows he's going to encounter some purple cloaks.
Which is kind of funny because it would have been better to keep the green if you wanted to sort of blend in with the jungle a little bit, maybe.
Yeah,
but he's like, no, I think I want to complement the jungle here. It's like really more of a better look for me.
Yeah,
so yeah,
they do very well together. So yeah, I can see us thinking that.
So I think the connection here with Planet of the Spiders is that the spiders were kind of invisible a lot of the time.
They were.
And so we have some invisible Daleks and invisibility. And I don't know, has Doctor Who done something better with invisibility? I think they should just do it. They should just get it out of their systems. I'm trying to think if there was an episode that concentrated on literal invisibility.
We had invisibility in the Hartnell era, I believe.
Right. Yeah, there was a bit of that, but I want to see like New Who tackle it. Yeah.
New Who invisibility. We need like an Invisible Man style story. Has New Who done that? I'm starting to think this is like a little known Matt Smith story somewhere.
Could be. Yeah.
1/5 of a Matt Smith story because Moffat had so many ideas. Like throw in an invisible guy right now. I can't believe it. Anyway,
message for Gatwa. Go ahead and RTD, call us. Do something with invisibility.
Mm-hmm.
But I see another question rounding that palm tree or that styrofoam rock in the distance. And yep, it is. What if the evil plot had succeeded?
So the evil plot is the Daleks,
or is it the Bacterias?
Oh, yes.
We didn't spend much time on that, but yes, it is the Daleks. So my view is that I always go with the last thing that happens to do the plot. So the explosion doesn't create the ice flow,
right?
So all the Daleks are activated.
Yes.
The Dalek ships land to pick them up, and then they start conquering the galaxy. But if you think about it, the Daleks still never left anybody on that ship. Nobody's on there. So they can still, and the Doctor and the Thals can still escape. There was some magic catwalk that appears at the end for them to just sort of go up to the surface. So they do that. They get in the ship, and now it's a big galactic war, and maybe it's even larger than it would have been. And maybe the Time War happens a little sooner.
Well, that's exactly my thought, because the Time Lords sent the Doctor. The Time Lords are basically listening in, especially with the help of these new cassette tapes that have replaced those old 500-year paper logs. They have means to listen in. Like the Doctor can just go back to the TARDIS and put his hands to the telepathic circuits at the very least. But they also might notice an army of 20,000 Daleks. Apparently, if 10,000 Daleks, whatever, if that's the largest Dalek army ever assembled. So yeah, definitely the Time War happens earlier.
Yeah, and I honestly think, as I thought about it, this probably happened because, like I say, maybe the whole thing where the Supreme Dalek is like, it's going to be a few centuries before we get it. Maybe he's wrong. Maybe there was some innovative Dalek. No, we can get it out in like a couple years. No problem. So in other words, there's a like this army gets freed and there is a war, because we hear a lot about Dalek wars, even after this one, like in the next episode, Death to the Daleks, which we've done for the podcast. There's a lot of chatter about Dalek wars and that they're a major galactic player. So
yeah, and there are a lot of Daleks in that story with PTSD. Who sort of inexplicably go mad. So clearly, a lot of war has happened.
All right.
Clearly,
so
they're not listening to the Doctor, by the way, and they are glamorizing war. That's the problem. They're going back and creating Dalek episodes of fantastic, heroic war.
Well, that's why the Thals must have tapped out of this whole Doctor Who universe. They don't like that. But someone who taps into a lot of Doctor Who stories is what we're about to talk about, and that is the third question. Where is the Clara Splinter? Clara Oswald, of course, splintered in time at the end of The Name of the Doctor. She's somewhere in every single Doctor Who story. Where is she? On the planet of the Daleks. Asterisk.
Well, asterisk indeed, because I don't think she's actually on Spiridon.
Okay.
I'm going to say that I'm going to give you a couple of Claras here. First of all, Time Lady Clara. Time Lady Clara.
That's becoming your crutch, man.
I love Time Lady Clara. I really
she's nice. I like Time Lady Clara too.
She certainly installed that IKEA furniture in the
yeah,
so that the Doctor could have a lie down just when he needed it.
Nice.
And but I also think that Dalek Clara is on the Supreme Council, and she is the one who's responsible for creating a mutant subset of Daleks, specifically the Spiridon mission, making them more sensitive to extreme cold.
Oh, the Supreme Council of the Time Lords, you mean?
The Daleks.
Of the Daleks?
Yeah,
So Dalek Supreme Council?
Yeah.
Council Clara?
Yeah.
That's got a stretch, but okay.
Who comes to visit? Like, there's got to be some reason why these Daleks are sensitive to extreme cold, and none of the other Daleks that we've seen are. So I'm saying that's one of the many Dalek Claras, because we know there are a lot of Dalek Clara splinters. There's certainly Souffle Girl.
That's true.
So,
yeah, she might have been.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I actually kind of had not quite the opposite, but a different role. I guess it is kind of the opposite. I was like Clara Oswald, Dalek Killer.
Love it.
And she is on a mission during this mission, but you never see her because she's so good at her job. Because she's gone to Spiridon, she breaks into the Dalek City, and this is right at the end when most of the Daleks are Paso, and running after the Dalek and everybody. The Doctor and the Thals. So she goes to that room with the bacteria, with the bioweapon, and she has some kind of like sanitizing radiation bomb or something. And what it does, it kills all the Daleks inside and the bacteria, so that when the whole place blows up, that bacteria isn't released all everywhere, because that's what would have thought I had. It's like, wait a minute, we just forgot about those guys that were trapped in the room forever with the bacteria that's going to kill everything. And by the way, holy cow, are both Dalek security and safety like absolutely terrible in this one. There's a bit where they're like, okay, all we got to do is take off the lid of this dome and everything on this planet dies. That's all we have to do. And one Dalek nearly bumps it. It's like, caution. Like, it's like, wait a minute, maybe we could put some clamps on this thing or something at the very least, or just why would you do it that way?
Yeah, the Dalek, it's just a bit of a weird choice. And you're absolutely right. I'd forgotten about the bacteria. The Daleks, by the way, you're reminding me when they yell, pursue. The Dalek, what they're saying in this episode is a bit weird. And who they're saying it to. Because there's one point where, usually they're talking to each other, right? But then there's one point where they say, pursue, surrender. So, like, are you changing like who you're talking to in the middle of that sentence? Because it kind of sounds like you're telling your fellow Daleks to surrender.
It does. Yeah. There's a lot of randomness with regard to, do they want to kill everybody? Do they want to capture people? Everyone's getting saved for interrogation. And then the commander seems to, at some point, decide, let's just kill everybody. Because there's like, oh, we're going to pursue them through the jungle. All right, make sure you just kill them all. Yes. Like, because we're done with this interrogation crap.
Yeah. Whenever you do the squirty plants, everyone ignores the squirty plants. It's kind of weird. Including Joe, including the Daleks.
They have that genetic modification that only makes them effective in episode 1. Okay.
And there we go. Clara, Dalek Clara, and Time Lady Clara, making sure that genetic modifications are correct for Spiridon.
All right. Everyone is waiting for our final verdict on this particular Doctor Who story. But before that, I want to make sure everyone knows you can get full notes of what we thought about Planet of the Daleks on Substack, on our newsletter. You can just go to pulltoopen.net, go to that website, subscribe to the newsletter, and you can get all of our thoughts. There's always a few things we don't get to, so there's fresh content. And don't forget to follow us on social. We are on TikTok at Pull to Open, Blue Sky at Pull to Open. We're on Instagram, Threads, X, and Facebook at Pull to Open 63. Great time to follow on those networks. Go ahead, pause the playback. Do it now.
Yeah. Or do it while Pete reads out the ratings.
Oh, yeah.
That's
good idea.
But first, we have to have the big build-up.
Oh, yes, we do. It is time for the final question, the ultimate question, the only question that matters for the planet's asterisk of the Daleks. What did we think of this story? The Pull to Open rating system has 7 ratings. There is the Dalek, which we give to a good episode of Doctor Who. There's the Ogron, which we give to an irredeemably bad episode of Doctor Who. The Professor Hater, which we give to a not-so-good episode, but hey, at least they tried something. The Viscount Banger, which we reserve for the best of the best. The Fixed Point in Time, which is a story beyond rating, usually for reasons of nostalgia. The Lady Cassandra, which is a paper-thin plot, but it is looks great. Especially with a little moisturizing. And then there is the Zarbi. Fresh Zarbi. Newly hatched rating. That means you dear episode, are so bad, you're good.
Yeah, so bad it's good. You loved it, despite or that's because of its badness, because of its campiness.
Yeah.
That's our new rating, which, spoiler alert, I'm not going to use here.
Okay.
Because I think I have never seen a Pertwee story that is a clearer example of this rating. And we've had a few. But this is thanks to the efforts of David Maloney and the costume designers who made those fabulous purple outfits and clothed Joe. This is really nice to look at. And yet the plot is so thin that if you put all the dialogue together, I often put these transcript files together. This one is a mere 38 pages. It was certainly the shortest we've ever had for a 6-episode Doctor Who story. There's just not a lot in the plot. So
I think if you count the murmuring in the jungle as dialogue, it's probably the longest, but go on.
And all these stretches of silence and all these things, all these questions we've raised that haven't answered. It is a paper-thin remake of the Daleks from 1964 with 1 episode removed. But it looks beautiful. It's colorized. It's colorized Hartnell. Like, jungle looks amazing. So total 100%, not even a hybrid, total Lady Cassandra.
Nice. No hybrid for you.
Oh.
Congratulations on kicking your habit. I am going to use our new rating. I'm actually going to go for the Zarbi on this one. It's certainly too long, and it has all the flaws we talked about, and there's sort of that it really will stick out like a sore thumb flaw of the cold being a weakness, which makes 0 sense for Daleks. But I got to tell you, like, I had such a good time watching this. I was watching with my daughter, and there were so many points where the Daleks get gooped with like the gun. Like, we had this, and there's like the plant spraying things, but particularly when the Daleks got covered in ice, liquid ice, we got into this habit of just going, "Ha! You just got gunked." It was just super fun to just say that, and we got really into like just some funny things when we were pointing out. There's the point where they barricade the base at the end where the Daleks are trying to get into, like the little cooling place, and the Daleks are like literally just shoving it a little bit with their feelers. And if you actually look at the stuff stacked up for the barricade, like, speaking of IKEA furniture, you're just like, wait a minute, like, why do the Daleks have office furniture lying around?
Hey, it's everywhere on Spiridon, Planet of the Daleks.
So there's just so much fun to be had with all of these things and the eyes at the plane of stones. And I gotta say, like I don't hate the plot. It might be a little by the numbers, but again, I like that it's Daleks plotting, which I kind of miss. In most of New Who, they're kind of obsessed with the Doctor, and the relationship between the Daleks and the Doctor is usually the emphasis. Whereas here, like throughout the entire thing, they're just, okay, here's our plan. Like, we're galactic conquerors, and we got a plan. And this is what we're doing, which is kind of like, I liked it. That was pretty refreshing. So, even though some of the dialogue and the speeches a little paint by numbers, they're good numbers. So, it's good. There's bad stuff, but it's good. So I don't know if that quite fits the Zarbi, because it's not. It's more of despite as opposed to because of in terms of the bad stuff. But I think it really delivered on a good experience watching Doctor Who for me.
There we go. I think that fits. That's great to hear. I was kind of looking for more of that, and I've got to say, I did watch this with a friend who is new to Doctor Who, and I've talked about this friend before. That she's really into the Daleks, thinks the Daleks are cute. And actually, Death of the Daleks was the first one that she ever saw. So I was looking for great things from this. But the fact that the Daleks, like immediately as soon as we got into Dalek dialogue, she was like, they're not sassy. Like, what's changed? What's gone wrong? Like, they're just. And, then this is why my headcanon is they're all talking that way, like they're all business because they know their supervisor's about to show up. They know they're being recorded. And they're on tape, if not Joe Grant's tape. So I was looking for a little more Zarbi from this. Didn't get it, so I'm really glad to hear that you and Grace had it. And yelling, "You've got gunked" at the screen is definitely an outcome that we kind of want from our Doctor Who viewing experience.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. It's fun times. All right. And now does your fun times, listener, to rate this story yourself. If you're on Spotify, go ahead and pull up from the bottom of the screen. Rate in our poll. Is it a Dalek, Ogron, Professor Hader, Viscount Banger, Fixed Point in Time, Lady Cassandra, or a Zarbi? Go ahead, make your choice, and we will report the aggregated results on a future episode of Poll to Open.
Right, but the polls will remain open. And one thing that also remains open is our TARDIS with its randomizer fitted. We have all of the oxygen supply that we need in there. We have not been wasting that. There is no gunk on the outside of our TARDIS. We don't have to... By the way, that was a really satisfying scene of cleaning the crust up, the Thals are cleaning the crust off the TARDIS. I was like, ooh, that's so good. That's like getting earwax out. That's like, ooh, it's like disgusting, but it's good. So anyway, we step back into our TARDIS. We walk up to the controls of our randomizer. Pete has the codex that is also known as the God, what do we call it?
It's a complete list of every single televised episode of Doctor Who. In chronological order. Yeah,
that's it. The Codex. I thought we had another name for it, but it's it's.
Oh no, yeah, it's the it's the Codex.
It's just the Codex.
The other things, yeah.
The other thing is the Executor, which sounds like much more of a Doctor Who / Dalek name. But the Executor is random.org, and I sit at the controls of that. And what happens is first Pete tells me the number of stories that we have yet to visit, now that we will never ever go to season 10 of the classic show again. How many do we have?
That's true. We have 184 stories left on the Codex.
184. So I plug that into random.org, which is bespoke randomness. It doesn't use randomly generated algorithms. It uses Spiridons in the atmosphere and other random events happening up there in the upper atmosphere, atoms bouncing around and invisible Dalek ships being spray painted. And before I hit the generate button, before we get a truly random number that corresponds to where we're going next, we like to challenge. We like to issue challenges to the randomizer, or pleas or requests. And the randomizer usually does not listen to us, but we persist anyway. Pete, what do you got this week?
Well, we did some Daleks. And honestly, it makes me want to do some more, because made me think about New Who Daleks and how these are a little different, as I was just talking about. And I got to looking at the Codex, and I realized, we haven't actually done that many New Who Dalek episodes. We've done some, but did Dalek, of course. We did The Magician's Apprentice, which is familiar. Maybe one or two others, but there's still Asylum of the Daleks, Victory of the Daleks. There's the Army of Ghosts, Doomsday. There's Stolen Earth. There's even the one in Manhattan. There's a bunch of Dalek episodes that we haven't done. So take us to some new Who Daleks. That's what I'm going to say.
I like your chances. Literally more likely than my request, which is give us another planet. Give us another planet.
Oh, you really want that bingo card.
I want that bingo. Either Planet of Bingo or David Maloney Bingo or Invisibility. I'll give you that option as well.
Cool. All right, let's get to it. Here we are. Happening. You ready?
I'm ready.
don't want to spring this on you. It's happening in 4, 3, 2, 1.
Run for your life.
156.
Oh wow, we're deep. Yeah. Dude.
Yeah.
Heaven Sent.
Oh my god!
No Daleks in Heaven Sent, though.
No Daleks, but there is a creature who's not... Well, he's not really...
Yeah, it may as well be invisible, if you think about it.
This is a delayed response to what you asked 2 Pull to Opens ago, I believe, where you asked for a story with the minimal amount of cast in it.
Oh, that's right. I did. Yeah. Or did you? I forgot. You went to Cast of Thousands. That's right. It was me.
Yeah.
All right. So the delay.
You've got your wish. We have the story that has been rated the best.
The best
Doctor Who story ever.
That's true. That is 100%
we've
true.
Sort of covered it because we did an episode on teleportation. We have done Hellbent. So as opposed to, Frontier and Space Planet of Spiders, where we did it the right way around. This way, we're doing a duology the wrong way around. But yes,
this will complete. Like if there's a bingo card for the back half of a season.
Yes,
that's kind of what it is, right? Because we have the Zygon invasion all the way to Hellbent. Once we've done this one,
this may also give us a bingo for Confession Dial.
Yeah.
Because we've got it's in Magician's Apprentice, which is familiar. We've done that. Obviously, we've done Hellbent. We've done Face the Raven. I don't even know if the Confession Dial shows up any further.
Well, listener, we appreciate you tuning your podcast dial over to Pull to Open, and we hope you come back next time when we do some commentary on what is supposedly the best Doctor Who story of all time. My goodness, that's something to look forward to. Hey, this has been a podcast. Podcasts are great things to subscribe to or follow, whatever your app allows you to do. We've already talked about our social networks. We've already talked about leaving reviews. The only better thing you could do than either of those things, guys, is to share the podcast with a friend. So if you like what you hear, please spread the word.
Indeed. And we will see you repeatedly as versions of us teleport into the next episode and are immediately killed, and the skulls pile up behind us. So look forward to that. Listeners.
That's right. Our commentary is delayed, but not defeated. We'll see you next time.
Take care.